I'm here in this wonderful hotel, Hambleton Hall, with Rob Skinner and Tim Hart, the proprietor. I'm amazed at this garden here. I think you've done a wonderful job. And this is one of the reasons, not just the fact that you held the Michelin star for the longest of any restaurant in the country, but it's also the gardens, isn't it? And the setting. And what was it like, Tim, when you came here?
Well, I took over from a good gardener, Betty Hoare, but it wasn't a hotel, and it didn't have that requirement, of course, to be charming at all times of the year. And we've really enjoyed building on the base we took over from Betty.
And so you obviously have to keep the whole thing looking wonderful from the hotel, because people come here because it is a destination, A, for the food, and B, because of the magnificent views over Rutland Water. I mean, it is just stunning, isn't it? And so the garden is very much part of the attraction. So, Rob, how many people have you got helping you with this?
So myself as head gardener, I have another member of staff who is full-time and a part-timer as well. So 2.5, I suppose.
And do you have much input in the design? Do you discuss it with Tim what you're going to do this year? Because presumably, like your food, you're always ringing the changes, you're always perfecting it, you're never happy with status quo.
No, I think that's right. I think we're constantly looking for improvements. So we have a few favourites, if you like, a few plants that we treat as reliable, which do very well for us each year. But then within that, we have the sort of scope to discuss things and sort of choose different plants each year. So a bit of both.
And what are your favourites?
Oh, wow. There's a question. Well, I suppose I do love the spring season. So I'm a big fan of tulips, for example. But in terms of the structure we have here, the cork oaks are just magnificent, especially on a day like today when it's sunny and they're providing some dappled shade here for the terrace.
Tim, your idea was the cork oaks. It was your idea?
Yes.
To choose those?
It was, yes.
And when you bought them, they were cloud pruned, but they've grown on. What size did you put them in?
We put them in, they were probably 12 foot or something like that, with maybe 3 or 4 inches stems diameter. And they weren't pruned at all. They were just, they'd, as you say, they always grow them to get as tall as possible, to charge you as much as possible. But,
yes.
Yeah.
I see. So they went in quite small. And at what point did you start to cloud prune them?
Well, we didn't really... I'd start off thinking about the clouds until they became the size where they threatened to overshadow the hotel a bit. But from the word go, I was very interested in making the form as beautiful as possible. So to make sure that the branches were encouraged to do what they do naturally anyway as oaks. Yeah. But we kept nipping off little cross branches and little kind of spurs that seemed to us in the wrong place. We did that from the word go.
Ah, I see. So when you did that, how long did it take from when you started to do that to form that shape?
Well, they had a pleasing shape as a small tree the size of a little crabapple or something, you know.
Yes.
But it's been a gradual process of every year looking and trying to see, well, that maybe we lose this branch or that. Just to it's not a lot, but a bit. There was much more to do about 7 or 8 years ago, probably, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think that's when we first sort of decided to really try and encourage this form of pruning. So, as Mr. Hart says, there was a year when there was a tremendous amount that we took from the middle.
Yes.
But then since then, it's just about been sort of shaping the clouds as such. So over the past 7 or 8 years, we've sort of gradually got them to this form as they are now.
So I remember talking to Tony Kirkham, who used to be head of trees at Kew, and he was saying we were talking about the trees for the next generation, because any tree you plant now, in 50 years' time, we're going to be like 2-3 degrees warmer, probably. And so he's looking at new, and he thought cork oak is one of those. And when I first started gardening about 50 odd years ago, seriously, they weren't regarded as hardy, but there are no qualms now with its hardiness.
None whatsoever. And Mr. Hart alluded to it then, it's normally sort of October, November, when we actually do our pruning.
Yes.
So it's not as if we wait for the spring to prune then. We actually prune sort of back end of the summer, early autumn. when you might be a little bit more cautious about doing some pruning, but the cork oaks have had no issue at all. Whether that's sort of down to the microclimate that we have here at Hambleton, they certainly seem to be flourishing anyway, so we've had no issues.
I suppose people worry about pruning later on because it might trigger them to put on new growth, which would then be frost susceptible, but I wouldn't have thought they would put on new growth then.
No, exactly right. No. So that sort of pruning at that time gives the maximum amount of time before the growth restarts, so that the rooms, for example, which are looking through, have maximum kind of view through the trees themselves.
No, I think they're spectacular. And Tim, describe me. I understand that you are the one that is the monkey that climbs a tree.
Well, I like climbing. Yes, I do. I started climbing because somebody wanted to charge me £400 a tree to prune the cedars. And I thought, well, it'd be rather fun to do it. And I found somebody from the Tree Climbers International who came to lunch. And he showed me how to... He bought the ropes for me, or told me where to get them, and told me how to tie the knot and how to climb up and do it. And I just thought, marvellous up here. It's quiet, nobody can bother you. And
and what kit do you use to cut them with? Do you use a hedge cutter for the small?
We use we do the what's it called, the cherry picker and a hedge cutter to do that. But the internal ones, I try and tie ropes across so that you're not. If you climb out on a branch, you might break it off and fall to your death. But if you tie ropes across like that, in order for the branch to bend down, it's got to pull the other one up. So that's how we've always done it, and then it's pretty reasonably safe in there.
Reasonably safe. And so how long does it take you to do both of those?
We reckon, do we do just 2 in a day, do you think, or all 3?
Yeah, I think usually from a sort of 9 a.m. start, so we're not disturbing the guests too much. We start about 9 a.m. and by 4 p.m. we'll be finished. But that'll be 3 of us working on them.
Yeah. And 3 trees.
One clearing up.
Yeah. Two trees in a day. And then on the north side there we have another cork oak, which is another half day.
Yeah.
I would do it differently. I would start it at 12 o'clock and it would be the entertainment, the pre-drinks entertainment, to watch
what
these
a good idea.
guys. I would come and watch, and you could
come
do courses. Yes. But seriously, I think part of the reason that this garden is so successful is because you've got this great structural side. I mean, the structure is amazing. There are different spaces cascading down the slope, the different terraces, the very contrasting, formal, entertaining terrace with a lovely ambience to it. Then the sort of formal garden below, and then the meadow, and then the lake. And then you've also got a lot of horticultural interest, haven't you? I mean, there's enough to keep any horticulturist happy here. So many flowers now, peonies, roses, bedding, plectranthus, all sorts. So who is the more horticulturally minded between the two of you?
Definitely Rob. So we go together to racehorse, for example, thinking about the annual border, and we look at plants and scratch our heads and pull out photographs of what worked last year. And
you go together to what? Did you say?
Racehorse Nursery, up at was he Castleby?
Yes, Castleby.
Yeah. Oh, Tim Russell.
Russell.
Tim Russell. Right. Yes, he's a great plant guy, isn't he?
Man.
Yes.
Great. And funny enough, he helped us a lot. We'd ask him, what would work. He'd say, try this and try that, And he knows that some things I don't like, and I'd say no.
Yes. Right.
You are quite right, though. You touched on it there, that we have got terrific structure here. So we've got lots of mature shrubs and trees, as you can see today. So it's about sort of filling the spaces between them, really. And over the years, we've sort of learnt what we do like. And as you said earlier, there's always room for introducing something new as well.
And do you ever have violent disagreements, Tim, and think, well, you really should use that or not?
No, I value my job. No, as I say, over the years I've learnt to realise what Mr. Hart does and doesn't like, so we're not a fan of bright orange colours, for example, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you like orange or not?
No. Particularly, no. sort of more of a fan of sort of pastel shades, if you like.
Yeah,
gentle
it does work
tones.
very well here,
Yeah.
doesn't it, in the
Yeah.
setting? But looking around the building, it's a lovely, these details on the building. The sundial here is fantastic, isn't it? Really lovely.
Yeah.
What one you mentioned some other points, that the guy who built it, who was a Wycomist, and Wycomists, people go to Winchester School, they are known for being, how would you say it,
Well,
eccentric?
they're both intelligent and alternative, I'd say. Would you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. My husband being one, I would definitely say that. Yes.
And yes, he built this house in 1881, and you know, although we associate the Victorian era with respectability, there was an undercurrent of protest, like Oscar Wilde, and he was naughty, Walter Marshall. He wasn't gay like Oscar Wilde, but he was naughty. So he puts his motto up as "Do as you please," face a Cavoodra over the door, and here we've got "Now is the time for a drink" as his motto on the sundial. And there's others. He's got the Wycomist thing, "Manners maketh man," and everything on one of the windows. And I'll show you when we have lunch.
Yeah. No, it is stunning. So how will you take this garden on, or just keep refining it and getting better and better?
No, I think the fun is change, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was at Glyndebourne and thinking how much I miss not having Salvia turkistanica,
Yes. Yeah.
which plant I really like.
I should have bought you one of those.
I
Yes.
bet you've got it.
It is nice, and
You see things, don't you, and get inspired.
Yes, yeah. I always thought that was easy to grow. I remember Anne Swithenbank recommending it on Gardener's Question Time once. And so I bought it. But actually, I find it quite slow to get going, and it slowly develops, and
Well,
I've got
there we
more and
are,
more
you
of it.
we tried it, and it hasn't really. I think we had a couple, didn't we?
We did,
Yeah.
which I think did pretty well for a couple of years. And
Yes,
then,
maybe we just try again.
Yeah, we'll try
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is the case with some
Yeah.
things, isn't it? You just
Yeah.
have to keep trying.
But
really.
now we've got these apps like Picture This, which tell you what
Yes.
things are. So you take pictures and identify them, and then you can go and do that's the fun of it. It constantly tweaking and tickling, isn't it?
And with the climate changing, things like plumbago, which
Yes.
I've left outside over winter,
Yeah.
and I thought was a greenhouse plant. Every book you read, it's a greenhouse plant. But then when I put it up on a YouTube video, I had people who lived in much colder countries than England saying, "Oh no, we've grown plumbago outside for years, and it's absolutely fine."
We've got a wonderful mimosa at home, which
yes.
was blooming this year. I mean, a tree the size almost as high as a cork oak.
Yeah,
Covered
in
in
London.
blossoms.
Yeah, and
In
they're
London, you see,
mass.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know I
Yeah.
had one at home, and then
Yeah.
it did turn up its toes when we had that -16 winter.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
I thought,
they
shall
come
I
up,
get
yeah.
another? But then
Yeah.
it's so big and so fast, and I put something
Yeah,
else.
They grow quickly, don't they?
Yeah, very, very nice. Well, that's great. So, can you give us a top tip for anyone who's inspired by your wonderful garden?
My top tip would be to have a walk around each day, actually, and sort of see what you notice. Each day you'll notice something different, and I think that the little details add up to the bigger picture. So just sort of take your time, spot something each and every day which you might like to improve, and go from there.
I think that's an excellent tip. Yeah, the shadow of the gardener, I always think, is the best fertiliser. A motto I often use. But you have to really look, don't you? You can't wander around in a day.
No, that's right. And quite often one thing leads to another, where you'll be working on one job and then you might think, oh, actually, whilst I'm here, I'll do this. So don't leave it till tomorrow, do it today.
Yeah, I'm dreadful like that. I dot and dash, but as long as I've got my hit list of what I must do that day, and I've done it, I'm happy.
Well, I make a list each and every week. So on a Friday afternoon, I'll sort of walk around and I'll see what I'd like to do the following week.
Yes.
Just so we're trying to keep on top of everything.
And do you make lists for him too?
Yes, but I lose them.
King Charles, you used to famously would have the list of what done, and he'd scribble over it in red pen, do this, do that, to his head gardeners. Yeah. And your top tip, Tim?
Yes.
Top tip, Tim?
Well, I think I'll just go back onto annuals. Don't follow the modern fashion of rejecting annuals utterly. They have a place.
Yeah. Lovely one. And there are so many wonderful annuals out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you both very much indeed. It's been really lovely to see
Thank you,
this.
Bunny.
And what fantastic weather.
Yeah, it is now.
Very lucky.